So I suppose the question is, what happened in that plane crash and why does it matter? This book is, as you describe, is about parallel events happening in different countries over the last 10 years at the same time, and the way in which similar kinds of patterns repeat themselves. And I wrote about the Smolensk plane crash as an example of how conspiracy theories work in modern politics. Because if the plane crash, which none of you may necessarily remember, was a moment, it was just over 10 years ago. The president of Poland was in a plane flying to a memorial site where quite a lot of Poles were murdered during the war. This is a place called Katyn, it's now in Russia. And he was on a plane with several dozen other people, including most of his entourage, senators and congressmen, Polish members of parliament from different parties, and a lot of other kind of dignitaries, including a lot of military leaders, because those who'd been murdered were soldiers at the time. And the plane crashed while it was landing on what was not really an airport. It was a kind of airstrip in the forest. It was a piece of concrete, really. And there was very, very heavy fog. And certainly the plane should not have landed. And the pilots were nervous about landing the plane. And we have the black box and their communications with the control tower. And we also know that people from the president's entourage were walking in and out of the cockpit, which is not what you're supposed to do when you're making difficult decisions like that, and probably influenced by the president himself, maybe after a call with his brother, who was his twin brother, who was the head of the political party that the president represented. The pilots attempted to land and they miscalculated and they hit a tree and the plane crashed and everybody died. And of course it was a terrible tragedy. And for days afterwards, even weeks, it almost brought the nation together. It was awful, and people wore black, and there were funerals all over the country. And it was very upsetting for me and my husband. My husband was at that time the Polish foreign minister, and of course friends of colleagues that, in one case, somebody who was very close to him was on the plane. And it was pretty clear quite quickly what had actually happened, which is, as I say, there was a mistaken attempt to land in this heavy fog. But it also became pretty clear that in Poland you have two political parties, and the president's party, which is it's called Law and Justice, and is I would say far right now, authoritarian populist party, was at that time at odds with the government, which was of a center-right party, a kind of European-style Christian Democrat party. So those were the two most important parties in Poland at the time. And the president's brother began spinning conspiracy theories about the plane crash and saying that, and this went on, they built up for a long time. He did it, and he had some of his colleagues do it, and they began hinting that maybe the crash was caused by the Russians, or maybe the crash was caused by somebody in the government, the prime minister, who was at that time Donald Tusk, who later became the president of the European Council. Or maybe it was my husband.